to rise in this House today on behalf of Leader Patrick Brown and the Ontario PC Caucus to pay tribute to and celebrate the parliamentary career of former Progressive Conservative MPP John Twinning Clement. First, let me welcome his family and friends to the legislature, including John's wife Carol, daughter Marnie's stepson and Member of Parliament for the Great Riding of Parry Sound, Muskoka, the Honourable Tony Clement, his wife Lynn Golding and grandkids, and I may miss some because they were on the list I had, Lauren, Jason, Max and Alexa. I'm also pleased to welcome the former member for Rainy River, Patrick Reid, who I spoke with just the other day, and of course Steve Gilchrist and former Speaker David Warner here as well. Welcome. In his 4 years in office from 1971 to 75, representing the people of Niagara Falls, John Clement amassed an impressive portfolio of positions held in government. This, of course, culminating in serving as the Attorney General in 1975. Prior to his election, John Clement was a successful lawyer and member of the school board in Niagara Falls. I was not fortunate enough to know John myself, but in preparation for this tribute, I called former Premier Bill Davis, because, of course, John Clement served in his cabinet from 1972 to 75. He also served with my father, Frank Miller, who was first elected in 1971 election with John. Premier Davis reminded me of the connection of the Clement family to Brampton, and made me promise to mention Brampton a few times in my remarks. So I'm sure that Tony Clement was influenced by and became interested in politics, in part because his father was an MPP that led him to running and becoming the MPP for Brampton. I know in my case, my father's involvement in politics got me interested. Premier Davis commented that John Clement was a first-class minister. Everybody liked and respected him, including the opposition. He said that John Clement was intellectually honest, fun to be with, that he appeared to be relaxed and comfortable all the time. He also said he had a great sense of humour. John's sense of humour came up with everyone I spoke to. The former Liberal member for Rainy River, Patrick Reid, said that John Clement was one of the all-time best joke tellers in the legislature. He also said that John was respected and liked by members from all political parties, and that he pointed out that John became the Attorney General's senior position in the government. I also spoke with former colleague and Cabinet Minister Claude Bennett, who also said what a great fellow John was, respected by all sides of the House, and he also commented on his great sense of humour. I received this story from the family, and I might point out that I received many other stories, some of which I was running over in the back room, and most of which I'm not allowed to use.
I screamed.
As much as I would love to, because there's some pretty good stories. But this one I received from Carol, so I think it's safe. When John was in law school, first year, one of his senior professors called him for a meeting where he basically told him that he thought it would be advisable for John to look for another profession. He did not think that John was cut out for law. John did not take that advice. Turn the page forward to when he was made Attorney General by Bill Davis. That same professor was now a well-respected senior civil servant in the Ministry of the Attorney General. One of the first things that John did was to call him and invite him to his office for a meeting. He could not resist reminding his former professor of the last time they sat down to discuss his career choices. They both laughed and developed a friendship. In latter years, I heard that story from both of them. John Clement loved to fly. He loved to spend an afternoon flying aerobatics in the skies over Niagara. He was a longtime president of the St. Catharines Flying Club. One of the highlights of his flying career was the 1971 air race from London, England to Victoria, BC. I read about it many years ago in a book entitled Don't Call Me a Legend, about international pilot Charlie Vaughan's flying exploits, and wondered at that time if John Clement, the lawyer, was the same John Clement, Ontario MPP and Cabinet Minister. And I happen, this isn't a prop, is it? One chapter of the book describes the air race. The story demonstrates John's love of flying, sense of humour, and fearless disposition. They flew in a very small aircraft, a twin-engine Piper Aztec. I'd like to quote from the book because it gives an insight into the kind of person John Clement was. Quote, in 1971, John Clement was a lawyer living and laughing in Niagara Falls, Ontario. He was round and quick-witted. He was serious only when absolutely necessary. His measurement of any activity was the potential for having fun. As a pleasure pilot, Clement neither had the qualifications nor the aspirations to compete in a transatlantic race on his own, but the idea of doing it appealed to him. Close quote. So he talked to Charlie Vaughan, his former instructor, into doing the race with him. Charlie describes flying to London with John. Quote, "I was happy to fly for hours without saying much, but John told joke after raunchy joke. At one point, I told him that I wasn't interested in getting in trouble with women if we got a few days in London. He asked why I needed to mention that. I didn't answer him right away, so he asked what I did want to get into trouble with in London. Nothing, I replied. Then I asked what was the fuel level on the last dip. I'm not telling you, he said. You'll know soon enough when they are empty. They dealt with a double engine failure, icing, navigation challenges in the pre-GPS world, and a broken heater over the North Atlantic Ocean, as described here. Quote, as the sun touched the horizon to the north, they still had a couple of hours to go. The temperature in the cockpit continued to drop. Clement looked at the ocean and mused. I don't know about you, Charlie, but I wouldn't mind another double engine failure about now. I think that water would be warmer than we are." Close quote. And there were a few other quotes in here I'd like to use, but you'll have to read the book in front. John lived life to the fullest and accomplished so much. However, it was his family, and especially his 7 grandkids, he was most proud of. So to his family, you can be very proud of John Twinning Clement. He left his mark here at the legislature and across the great province of Ontario. Thank you very much. Thank you.